All right, everybody. So today we are going to be talking about. This doesn't seem right. Oh, hold on. All right. So today, funnily enough, we are going to be talking about *The Idiot* by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I just finished it today, maybe like 25-30 minutes ago. I was supposed to finish it earlier, but I had a ton of chores to do. I'm still doing laundry, actually. And once I got to the ending, I got so excited that I just had to get up and walk around every couple minutes because I was like, holy crap, what's gonna happen? Dostoevsky is probably my most favorite writer of all time, besides Franz Kafka, Virginia Woolf, Neil Gaiman, probably Steinbeck as well, if I had to put them in there. But Dostoevsky, I've only ever read Crime and Punishment as well. Funnily enough, I've got the Brothers Karamazov floating on my shelf somewhere. But his novel was the one that started me on my journey to get my bachelor's in English and eventually start this channel doing book reviews and stuff, and then eventually start my master's program, which will be coming within the next week. So I really want to try to get as much reading as I can before I hopefully don't have to put that on hold, but I am expecting to just to get in the groove a little bit. But anyways, Idiot by Dostoevsky, translation by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky. I will, hopefully I didn't get that too bad. But anyways, it follows Prince Michigan returning to Russia from Switzerland after he was sent there because he was ill with, I guess you could call it idiotness. I guess he would just have fits, epilepsy. He'd have epilepsy, as what we would call it now. And they try to cure him, but of course this is like the mid 1800s, so it's not really all that doable. But they tried to educate him there, and eventually he got good enough, and he wanted to return back to Russia. And this just goes over about, I want to say 9 months worth of stuff in Russia, in Petersburg, and another smaller suburb just outside of Petersburg. It is fantastic. Dostoevsky wrote this under the impression of what if Christ himself was to come to Earth? What would he look like? What would that scenario look like? Prince Michigan is so unabashedly innocent, kind-hearted. He loves everything. He sees the beauty in everything. He sees the absolute terror in capital punishment. He is able to connect with others so fast and really just look into themselves, or look into them and see just under what great strain and pressure they're under, and it throws almost everybody for a loop, really, because this is the mid 1800s in Russia. This is still the time of high society and stuff. This is before all of the major revolutions have happened during the 20th century. It's fantastic. It is so fantastic. I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, those are all the times that I marked. I wanted to mark a lot more, but I'm not doing a paper for this, so I didn't find it necessary. But I will definitely find a couple of quotes and stuff that I wanted to pull and share it with you guys later in the video. What would it be like if Christ came down now? If a completely innocent human being that was able to... Am I recording? Okay, sorry. Thought I wasn't recording because the time on my software was still at 0. Thankfully still got that. I really hate redoing stuff. That's probably the thing that I hate most about doing stuff. But I sort of just want to go over this novel and try to convince the audience that is watching why they should read this and what implications this novel has now. Oh, by the way, this is very funny. This is a very funny novel. Now, of course, I love Dostoevsky. I love his writing. I love his tangents that he just goes on. He just goes on tangents in like these middle to high society drawing room conversations where people just get to talk their mind, and you get to be in this mindset of whatever character that he chooses, and they'll just go off on a tirade, and it's fantastic. I love it. You get to learn about these characters and really grow with them and care for them and hate them, despise them, and at times it's just so joyful. And every time it's joyful, the prince is there, because he is obviously he's the main character, but he infects everybody with such a wonderful mood. And they all say that all the time. And I know there's a certain way of, like, or the proper way that somebody should come out of this novel is that, like, oh, everybody thought that the prince was an idiot, right? They say literally all throughout the novel, even towards the end, which is a very sad ending, to be honest. I didn't think it was gonna end like that. I thought it was going to be happier. I mean, I thought everybody was gonna get there. It was setting up to be like such a happy novel, and then Dostoevsky dragged me down by my feet and said, "No, Jerem, this is reality. Unfortunately, you cannot have your happy ending. Don't be such an idiot." Yeah, you should walk out of this novel being like, Prince Michigan was the smartest character in this book, bar none, and everybody called him an idiot. That's what I think you should. That's like the main point that you should get. That like for this character, anyways, he is anything but an idiot. He is a kind, caring, compassionate person that is willing to engage with whoever and willing to forgive whoever as long as he thinks they sincerely mean it. And he's willing to forgive all debts, all what's the word? Not punishments, but like all scandals, all insults. You know, just because of how compassionate he is. These high society rants. It's just so funny to hear it, because you just feel like you're in the drawing room, sitting in a chair in the corner, just listening to all of this, just hearing these characters talk about their lives. And I know that for some it can be very boring. Like, I understand that this is not a novel that you want to read for 15 to 20 pages about what's happened in the past 2 weeks, about a character that hardly even matters, about their memories that they probably don't even remember correctly because they're drunk. And yet you just get this sense of like this Russian history that is, it's so real, it's so grounded in like, oh, like this is what they did back then. They just sat around and talked. That's all they do. And two things. One, I love the chase scenes. There are chase scenes where characters are trying to go around Petersburg, finding other people. And you just think about that now, and you're like, well, you can't do that now, because like everybody has a phone. It's like, oh, I'm going to go call on this person. Literally just go over to their house and be like, yo, are you home? And then if they're home, they pretty much have to accept you, which is crazy. What if you just woke up at like 10 a.m., you just rolled out of bed because it's your Saturday, and then like one of your friends just like knocks on your door, and they're like, oh, hey, I'm here. Like, do you want to hang out? You're like, dude, why didn't you text me or whatever? But they were like, no, sorry, bro. I'm here. It's funny. That's funny. And you may think, Jerem, how is it funny? How is this funny? It's they must be talking about droll and politics and nothing. They literally talk about nothing. Dostoevsky himself wrote that they talk about nothing most of the time. I'm going to find it. Here we go. It would never have occurred to him that all this simple hardness and nobility, sharp wit, and lofty dignity might only be a splendid artistic contrivance. The majority of the guests, despite their imposing appearance, were even rather empty people, who, incidentally, in their self-satisfaction, did not know themselves that much of what was good in them was only a contrivance, for which, moreover, they were not to blame, for they had acquired it unconsciously and by inheritance. This the prince did not even want to suspect, under the spell of his lovely first impression. He saw, for instance, that this old man, this important dignitary, who by his age might have been his grandfather, even interrupted his own conversation in order to listen to such a young and inexperienced man as he, and not only listened to him, but clearly valued his opinion, was so gentle with him, so sincerely good-natured, and yet they were strangers, and were seeing each other for the first time. Like, this is the narrator saying this, and so there's a difference between high society and, like, middle society, which we're with most of the time. We're with middle society most of the time. I just say high society because it's easier. But by the end, Dostoevsky really, like, starts to hammer home the point that, like, hey, like, these people don't know what they're talking about. Their opinions are irrelevant most of the time. They have no originality in them. There is a like a manifesto in here by one of the characters who dies from consumption. And we know he's going to die from consumption. And then he about how people in society are lacking originality. It's incredible. But as I was saying, hilarity, laughter, joyousness. He says guffaw a lot. Guffawed. He guffawed. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I'm just like imagining like characters just like very chest open, just guffawing, and it's so funny. Dostoevsky loved that verb. No, I need to read this to you guys because this is like one of the funniest things I've ever read. Bear with me for this. A stupid story. Okay, so this character, this general, he's a drunk and he likes to make up stories a lot. Okay, but we don't really know this at this time yet. So reading this as a reader for the first time is it's so funny. He's saying this at like somebody's birthday party, and as once again middle society is just conversing, and it's just like the not the hilarity, but the impossibility, I guess, of this. It's like not expected, you know, like it's just like this is not expected. I'll think of it later. A stupid story, and briefly told, the general began self-contently. 2 years ago, yes, or a bit less. Just when the blank railway line was opened, I, already in civilian dress, seeing to some extremely important matters to do with handing over my job, bought myself a first-class ticket. I got in, sat down, smoked. That is, I went on smoking, because I had lit up earlier. I was alone in the compartment. Smoking was not prohibited, but neither was it permitted. Sort of half permitted, as usual. Well, and depending on the person. The windows open. Suddenly, just before the whistle, 2 ladies with a lapdog placed themselves just opposite me. Latecomers. One is most magnificently dressed in light blue. The other, more modestly, in black silk with a pearline. They're not bad looking, have a haughty air, talk in English. I, of course, just sit there smoking. That is, I did have a thought, but nevertheless, since the window's open, I go on smoking out the window. The dog reposes in the light blue lady's lap. A little thing, the size of my fist, black with white paws, even a rarity. Silver collar with a motto. I just sit there, only I notice that the ladies seem to be angry, about the cigar, of course. One glares through a lorgnette, tortoiseshell. Again, I just sit there, because they don't say anything. If they spoke, warned, asked, for there is, finally, such a thing as human speech. But they're silent, suddenly, without any warning, I tell you, without the slightest warning. As if she'd taken leave of her senses, the light blue one snatches a cigar from my hand and throws it out the window. The train flies on. I stare like a half-wit. A wild woman, as if in a totally wild stare, a hefty one, though, tall, full, blonde, ruddy, even much too ruddy, her eyes flashing at me, without saying a word, with extraordinary politeness, with the most perfect politeness, with the most, so to speak, refined politeness. I reach out for the dog, with 2 fingers, take it delicately by the scruff of the neck, and whisk it out the window in the wake of my cigar. It let out a little squeal. The train goes flying on. What? The absurdity. The absurdity. That's the word I was trying to think of. The absurdity of that. In like a mid-1800s Russian novel. It's just so funny. It's so funny. I don't know what it was about Russian authors and being funny, but they're hilarious. Same thing with The Master and Margarita. Mikhail Bulgakov is just hilarious. I don't know, man, but their kind of trauma made them incredibly smart. Being lined up point blank at a firing squad, Dostoevsky, whatever that did to you, it did it right because you produced all these masterpieces. So, hats off to you. Next, I'd like to get into a little bit of the prose. Like I said, Dostoevsky, this is like a 600-page novel, and the words are pretty tiny, I'd say. So really, probably like 700 to 800, because I feel like this went on for a while. It took me a good fat minute to finish this. The prose of Dostoevsky is, it's not simple, but it's elegant in the sense that you wouldn't need all of it to understand the story, but you need to read all of it to appreciate the story. You need to read all of it to appreciate the finest details that he's trying to tell you about through the prince, through Nastasia, through Rogozin. Everybody is so animated in this novel as well. Everybody is always crying out and wept violently in their hands after proclaiming something that they've been hiding from the other characters, or they're so overjoyed with forgiveness and just everything in between that is just they're very animated, and I never once got tired of it. I guess I just started laughing at it sometimes, actually, just because of the hilarity of it. But to answer the question that I saw from other videos, Dostoevsky wrote, like, what if Christ was on Earth? What would he be like? He'd be corrupted. He would be corrupted. And I wouldn't have said that until I finished the novel. And now that I finished the novel, I can wholeheartedly say he would be corrupted. He would. I don't know if it was because he'd be a man, and like Dostoevsky had a very different thought process, like almost 200 years ago. But he was corrupted in this novel, and he became an idiot once again. A true idiot this time, unfortunately. And I don't know if this is meant to be such a realistic take, like, is there no hope? But I doubt that. I doubt Dostoevsky would want to write about that. If you come out of this novel lacking hope, you did not partake of the prince's teachings lightly. You didn't listen to what he had to say for the whole 600 pages that we got to enjoy his company. Yes, he may have been corrupted. Yes, he may have a tragedy may have befallen him by the end of the novel. But that doesn't mean that the lessons that he taught us are any less irrelevant. Even now in today's society. I'd like to share one more before I go. And I'm hoping that I'm able to pick a good one, because I do indeed think it was a good one. I don't think this is the most lyrically beautiful part of the novel, but you just really get a sense for how important teaching other people is to the prince. So he's already been ranting for a little while, and people at this party are starting to get upset with him, because you don't do that in high society. But the prince doesn't care. He doesn't care. Oh, no, no. Not only to theology, I assure you. It concerns us much more closely than you think. That is our whole mistake, that we're still unable to see that this is not only an exclusively theological matter, for socialism is also a product of Catholicism and the Catholic essence. It too, like its brother atheism, came from despair, opposing Catholicism in a moral sense, in order to replace the lost moral force of religion with itself, in order to quench the spiritual thirst of thirsting mankind and save it not through Christ, but also through violence. It is also freedom through violence. It is also unity through blood and the sword. Do not dare to believe in God. Do not dare to have property. Do not dare to have personality, brotherhood, or death. 2,000,000 heads. You shall know them by their deeds, it is said, and don't think that it's all so innocent and unthreatening for us. Oh, we must respond, and swiftly, swiftly, our Christ, whom we have preserved and they have never known, must shine forth as a response to the West, not by being slavishly caught on the Jesuits' hook, but by bringing them our Russian civilization. We must now confront them, and let it not be said among us that their preaching is elegant, as someone just said. And then he's interrupted, but it's just like, do you feel the energy with which he's talking about, with which the sentences are constructed? You just feel that he really cares about the topics that he's talking about. And obviously Dostoevsky was a frank, was a very devout religious person, and he held that belief for his entire life. And so I'm sure that a part of Dostoevsky was written into Prince Myshkin, as Prince Myshkin was written into all of us as well. Man, I'm probably gonna have to cut this video a lot. My thoughts are all over the place, but it's just because I'm so excited for this novel. It is just so utterly fantastic. So utterly fantastic. Oh, but it's so sad at times. Overall, excellent novel. You really get a sense of Dostoevsky's vision for the world. You get a bit of his philosophy as well. You get not as much world building as what was like in Crime and Punishment, but nonetheless, you get to spend a lot more time with more characters and just get to see how they interact with each other, and how corruption can entail other people, and how it can corrupt even the best of us, how society drags on everybody involved at pretty much all times, because it is unrelenting then and now. Overall, if you have a couple weekends to spare and can just really dig this apart chunk by chunk, and you don't mind reading Dostoevsky's just 20-page stories that just like, it's like, oh hey, by the way, let me catch you up on what happened in the past 3 months. I think it would be great. I never really got bored, but once again, I quite enjoy Dostoevsky's writing. So if you'd like to give it a try, maybe start with something a little bit smaller, maybe something like The Gambler or The Double, or just go straight to Crime and Punishment. I don't know, but either way, I will. Oh, before I go, this was recommended to me by a coworker at work. I don't think it'll take me that long to get through, but A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I should hopefully have that done within a week, I'd say. So, oh yeah, most definitely within a week. So I'm excited for that, because this is pretty far out of my comfort zone, I'd say. She said it was very akin to The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm very excited to read it and share with you guys what I think. But until then, I hope everybody has a great week and an excellent new year upon you guys. And yeah, hopefully you've been able to follow this video and it hasn't been the ramblings of an idiot. So yes, I got in at least 3 puns. All right, I will I'll see see you guys later. Bye bye.